Kwity Paye. But me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to Draft Prospects 101 Live. Talking edge rushers tonight. And I'm going to be brutally honest with you, keep it a buck and some change. Not really blown away by this particular group. I can say this about edge rushers in particular, not just this group of edge rushers, but the position as a whole. It's one of those positions that you've got to be able to project what that player is going to be 3-4 years down the road. Especially edge rushers because of the landscape of college football. A lot of times colleges aren't doing what's in the best interest of that player. They're doing what's in the best interest of their team at that particular time. So for a guy that's going to ultimately be a base 4-3 defensive end, or even an outside linebacker in a 3-4 defense in an odd front, they may not have him on the ball per se. You know, they may be playing him as a weak side off the ball linebacker, and that's not his natural position, but for what they need in that particular season or for these games when somebody's out with injury, that's what you're going to have to do to help the team. And so it doesn't always fit in what the best interest of that player is projecting to the next level. So you've got to take it upon yourself to be able to see what this guy does and how that would fit into an NFL defense. Specifically, if you're a defensive coordinator, how does this guy fit what I want to do? And how can I use his attributes, his size, his length, his speed, his quickness, this, that, and the third to my advantage, to his advantage? And more importantly, how do I get to the untapped potential? How can I get this guy to be the best version of himself at the next level? And can I see it happening? And if it does happen, just how good can he be really? And that's when we start getting into comps. It's when we start getting into the ceiling. And you hear people say, well, the ceiling and the floor are one and the same. That means it's a pretty transparent package. You know exactly what you're getting here. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. With some of these guys, the ceiling is through the roof and the floor is to hell. And so with those guys, it's dangerous. They're risky because if he pops, okay, he could be Aaron Donald. And we're talking about defensive ends, not defensive tackles. If you want a defensive end, if he pops, he could turn into Khalil Mack, or he could turn into Von Miller, or he could turn into Myles Garrett, okay? Or he could turn into Chandler Jones, or he could turn into Shaq Barrett. If he flops, he could turn into ... And we've seen plenty of these guys come in the league and exit the league very, very quickly. Guys we thought were going to be good and ultimately weren't very good. So the edge rushing position is one of those really fun positions to watch, but you have to be able to project. And this particular draft crop of edge rushers, I think, requires you to have to be able to project. And I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know, because really with any position, you need to be able to project. But specifically with edge rushers, you don't always see it. You know, when you look at a receiver, you're thinking, man, how can we make this guy better? But you see the talent. You see a bunch of flashes and you know what this guy is capable of. It's now just getting him to be consistent, putting him in positions to succeed. With edge rushers, sometimes you don't always see enough of it to know that this is what this guy is capable of on a consistent basis. But you know you saw it once or twice, and so you know he's capable. Can you get it out of him? So with that said, let's get to tonight's show and start talking edge rushers. I will give you my top 7 edge rushers. I'll also provide you with my riser, my biggest riser / sleeper of the week. And so we'll do that at the very end of the show. But I want to get to the proceedings this evening and start with my top 7 edge rushers. I start with my 7th, work my way all the way to the top. And so let's get into our breakdown. And before we do that, quickly, if you haven't already done so, want to urge you right now to hit the like button, subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content, and turn on your notification bell so you don't miss a thing. So with that in mind, let's jump in to my top 7 edge rushers for the 2021 NFL Draft. And we start with number 7. And for me, it's Joseph Ossai. Okay. Joseph Ossai, edge rusher out of Texas, 6'3", 245 pounds. This is a guy that at one point was a stand-up outside linebacker, a will linebacker. Texas didn't really know what to do with him. In 2019, he'd be down, he'd be standing up, he was moving around. They just knew he was a playmaker. They didn't really know what was best for him at the time, so they just kept moving him around. It worked. In 2020, they had a little bit more of a game plan for Joseph Ossai, and that game plan was, hey, stick your hand in the dirt, be an edge rusher. That's probably more likely what you're going to be at the next level anyway. And I think it was beneficial for him. He got some much needed experience with his hand in the dirt more consistently. He's a guy that I think needs a ton of work. And had he played with his hand in the dirt for 3 years or for even 2 years consistently, he'd be a lot further along in his process. And that's kind of what I was alluding to at the beginning. But with that said, let's go and flip this thing over and get to his card. And what you'll see with Joseph Ossai is his strengths and weaknesses, my projection and his comp. Let's get into his strengths first. And we start with his length. When you look at him, I mean, just looking at him in the picture you see in front of you, he's a guy that has some length to him. And as an edge rusher, that's one of the more, I think, underrated things that you can have in terms of traits and characteristics. If you've got length, that's a winner right out of the gate. If you know how to use it, length can be one of your best friends. And I don't think a lot of guys that have length understand what kind of advantage they have. And Ossai has some length. And I think that's going to be something that he needs to start leaning on as he gets more and more refined as a pass rusher. I don't think he's there yet. I don't think he's thinking about what he can do with that length, but he's got length. He's got a frame that I think can add mass. That's also a plus for him. Right now, at 6'3", 245, you're looking at him, and he looks more like a 3-4 outside backer than he does a hand in the dirt, 3-point stance type of guy. But bottom line is, I think he is more of a defensive end. I don't think he is a guy you necessarily want standing up in a 3-4 defensive scheme, although I think he could do it if need be. I think his skill set suggests his hand should be in the dirt. So I think that Joseph Ossai is a guy that can put on some more weight, get to 255 or so, and be a hand in the dirt defensive end in this league. And we'll see if he can carry that weight and still keep his athleticism, which I don't think should be a big problem for him. Speaking of athleticism, that's the next pro and strength. He's a really good athlete. You see it when you watch him. You go back to 2019. I talked about him being an off-the-ball linebacker as a will, and you could see him moving around. You could see why Texas was comfortable having him in that spot. Not necessarily having him excel there, which is why they ultimately decided that hand in the dirt defensive end was a better option for him than off the ball weak side linebacker. But still, the athleticism is there. You don't just put anybody in that spot. Acceleration is one of those things you noticed. And I think when you see it with Joseph Ossai the most is tracking a play down from the backside where you're unblocked. They don't think you can get to the ball carrier. It's a run away from your side, so they don't bother blocking you. and it's your job to track backside. If they don't give you any action to the backside to hold you, then you just go. You take off like you're shot out of a cannon, and he does. And a lot of times he tracks those runs down from behind on the backside. So he is a guy that has some acceleration. Relentless motor. I think the thing that you notice with him, and a lot of these guys for that matter, I didn't have too many guys that I watched on tape and I said, well, he's pretty damn lazy. A lot of these guys go hard. And anyway, for me, that's one of those things. If I'm a coach, you don't have to be skilled to have a motor, to have hustle, to not quit on a play. You don't have to have skill to do that. You should be able that. You should come equipped with that. That shouldn't be something that you have to go out and get. Okay, that should come with assembly. Inside the package, I open it up and I have relentless motor. He has that. That's not something you worry about with him. He's assignment oriented, and I talked about him being a guy that doesn't get blocked on the backside, but even still, he's a guy that is going to wait it out. If it's a read option, he's going to stay backside. If it's bootleg, you're not going to essentially get him to chase the ball and be out of position, and somebody comes crossing his face, and here comes a tight end or a running back wide open into the flats. He does a really good job of doing what he's supposed to do. It's another thing to get him to recognize what the hell is happening fast enough so that he can make a play. But as far as, hey, Joseph, you've got backside contained. Joseph's got backside contained. So he's an assignment-oriented type of player. My favorite trait and characteristic and strength of Joseph Ossai is he's a playmaker, man. I've talked about the ability to just be around the ball. Guys that just have a knack for being in the right place at the right time. And not everybody has that. You'll see guys that come into the league and don't have one single turnover forced. They don't have, if you're a corner and you don't have any interceptions, that's a problem. Remember, we made a big deal about that with Mackenzie Alexander. And you can make the excuse, well, they don't throw it my way. Well, they threw it enough your way. Okay, they didn't always go away from you. Why don't you have any interceptions? Why didn't you just get lucky and have one tip in your direction? And so there's something to be said about guys that are just around the ball, around the action. When you hustle, when you got a high motor, that's when you find yourself around the action. And I just want to give you a few numbers from the last couple of years that kind of states that he's a playmaker, that kind of screams playmaker. In 9 games in 2020, 16 tackles for loss, 5 of which were sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery, 2 pass breakups in just 9 games, okay? That was in 2020 when he had his hand in the dirt primarily as an edge rusher. In 2019, when he was a combo edge rusher, 3-point stance, 2-point stance, hand or stand-up outside linebacker, and you really could just say he was a weak side off the ball backer, but they moved him around so much you didn't know where he was going to end up. 13 games, 13 and a half tackles for loss. 5 of them were sacks, 1 forced fumble, 1 pass breakup, 2 interceptions, and a blocked kick. Okay, so when I tell you that this guy is always around the ball and something is always happening with him around the football, you're talking about a guy in Joseph Ossai that is a playmaker. Football junkie. This is a guy that grew up in Nigeria, was born there, came to the States when he was 10. He was introduced to football. He didn't love football. As a matter of fact, he didn't even like football when his uncle introduced him to the game. And then he played. He really grew to like the game. Now he loves it. He can't get enough of it. He's a film rat. He's a guy that always wants to be around the game. And we talk about guys having love for the game of football and that being a very integral part of this process, finding out who loves ball. Because there are guys that are just in it for the check. Guys that really don't love the game, aren't going to put in the work to become the best player that they can. Guys like Sua Cravens comes to mind. He didn't love football. Josh Doxson did not love football. when you get to these prospects, you have to do your due diligence to find out if they love ball. You don't have to worry about that with Joseph Ossai. He is a football junkie by all reports. And then he's got upside. I talked about this guy really only playing with hand in dirt as a true defensive end one season at Texas. So for all intents and purposes, you're talking about a guy with only 1 year of experience as a defensive end. So again, I don't like throwing the phrase upside around very often because all of these prospects should have upside, right? They shouldn't be the best that they can be in terms of a football player at this point. But I don't like throwing that term around loosely because it's too easy and lazy of a phrase to throw around. But with these edge rushers in particular, a lot of these guys didn't either they didn't come to college as an edge rusher or they haven't played the position. And with this COVID-19 pandemic shutting down seasons for guys and them not having some of the extra experience they would have gotten from another season of play, you're going to see the phrase upside quite a bit tonight, more than I would like to use it, but it does apply here and every other place I'll use it tonight. So his weaknesses, he's raw. I just told you that he got some opportunities to rush with his hand in the dirt in 2019, but he was primarily a weak side backer off the football. So he was more in a two-point stance. He was more of a blitzer. They moved him around. In 2020, he's playing more of what he's probably going to be asked to do at the next level, which is hand in the dirt defensive end. So he's extremely raw. And that's not uncommon for a guy that essentially switched positions going into the final year of his collegiate career. Needs to get stronger at the point of attack. This is why I talk about having a frame that can add mass, because I think he needs to get a little bit stronger at the point of attack. I think he needs to use his length a little bit better at the point of attack. Too many times it's rare that I see a guy get his ass whooped at the point of attack as badly as I saw Joseph Ossai get his ass whooped at the point of attack at times. I mean, guys are tossing him on the ground, taking him and pitching him to, gaps over out of the play. He's going to have to get stronger at the point of attack if he wants to be on the field all 3 downs. Point blank, end of discussion. Needs tons of pass rush refinery. Look, most guys come into the league needing work on their pass rush. Whether they don't have a plan when they rush or they don't have a bevy of moves, it's not uncommon. As a matter of fact, the guys that actually do have seasoning, actually do have a plan, actually do have tools in their pass rush tool belt, those are the guys that are the outliers now in really coming into the league. For me, as I've done this for nearly a decade, I've seen more guys come into the league raw, needing work, than I have guys seasoned, ready to go right out of the packaging as soon as they hit the league, even if it's only in a 3rd down situational pass rushing role that they're ready to go. Those guys are rare. So he's another one of those guys that's going to need work. And you may not reap the benefits of Joseph Ossai, the pass rusher, for 2-3 years down the road. And you have to understand it, but you got to know that there's some upside there. Consistently laid off the snap. I talked about him being a playmaker, and that's my favorite characteristic in pro about Joseph Ossai. The thing that is my biggest pet peeve with him, and really with any player that this is a problem with, is consistently laid off the snap. Look, much like I talked about with effort and high motor, and like you don't have to be skilled to do that. You don't have to be skilled to get off the ball when it's snapped. Like literally, if you're having an issue, you got 2 options. Look at the guy in front of you or just look at the damn ball. Pick one, roll with that, okay? For whatever reason, everybody's moved and taken a full step and a half and he's just getting off the ball. Well, you're not explosive enough to take that long and still beat the guy in front of you, first and foremost. Secondly, what are we doing, guy? And this is happening way too often. And again, maybe it's just the games that I watched, but this is happening at a high clip. I mean, he might have rushed the quarterback in a game 24 times, and 5 of those times, he's laid off the ball a full step and a half after everybody else. And I'm like, come on, guy, what are we doing right now? Like, seriously, why is this continuing to happen? He's got to clean that up. That can't be a thing at the next level. And in his play recognition, can be a lot sharper. And again, this comes from lack of experience. Haven't seen it a ton. Haven't experienced what's going on. He needs to see it and be able to react to it faster. And that will come with time. That's not something I really want to harp on too much. But there are too many times where you see him hand in dirt and he comes up the field screaming like a banshee out of hell. And, I mean, it couldn't be any easier to recognize this is a screen, bro. Like, the tackle didn't even bother with you. He let you go. Look, you're good. You're not that damn good, okay? You got to recognize this is a screen, okay? He's letting you go for a reason. And it's those types of things that I think he needs to get better at, and he will eventually. I've got a second-round projection on Joseph Ossai. I can't get past the playmaking ability. Like, guys like this, you want on your team because there's something to be said about guys who are always around the football, and Ossai is one of those guys, and I think someone's going to fall in love with his playmaking ability and some of the flashes of brilliance that you saw from him. There were games where he was just flat out dominant in, and it's that's going to get him. It's those types of games and those types of traits that are going to get him drafted probably a little bit earlier than I would like to see him drafted. I think he's more of a third-round pick myself, but I think he's going to go in the second round, and I wouldn't have a problem with him going in the second round. My comp for him is Ben Banogu, a guy that I did not love coming out of TCU, and I don't necessarily love Joseph Ossai. Okay, and I see a lot of the same traits and characteristics. Banogu was a guy that moved around at TCU. He was standing up. His hand was in the dirt. And the Colts took him a little bit sooner than I thought was necessary, but they had a plan for him. And so I want to see if Ossai ends up being a guy that sticks his hand in the dirt, which I think is probably what is going to be asked of him at the next level. Or if someone says, hey, no, you can stand up. We thought you were good in 2019. We actually thought you were better in 2019. We'll see what someone decides to do with him. I just see a lot of Ben Banogu at TCU. When I watched him, I saw a lot of the same traits coming into the league as I did Ben Banogu when he was coming into the league out of TCU. So Joseph Ossai, my 7th rated edge rusher in the 2021 NFL Draft. We move to my number 6 edge rusher, and it's Aziz Ojulari out of Georgia. You're talking about a guy here, 6'3", 240 pounds. The thing that should jump out at you looking at his profile here is that he's a redshirt sophomore. So you're talking about a young pup, man, wet behind the ears, breath smelling like Similac, okay? Young guy, lot to learn, and so you have to take that into consideration as well as we flip this thing over and take a look at his card. And so the first thing we talk about is his strengths. And for Aziz Ojulari, it's his physicality, man. This guy is extremely physical for a 6'3", 240-pound defender coming off the edge. Man, is he physical. Stout at the point of attack. And I think the physicality is so noticeable, and you can tell when a guy's got shock and violence in his hands. Aziz Ojulari has heavy hands, man. It reminds me of when I watched Khalil Mack coming out of Buffalo, just how violent his hands were. And I'm not saying that this is what this guy is. Obviously, I don't think that's what his potential is. But Khalil Mack's hands were so violent. I just remember him just destroying tackles with just sheer heavy hands that they weren't prepared for. And you see that with Aziz Ojulari from time to time. So his hands are definitely heavy. That's where that physicality comes from. And that's why he's so stout at the point of attack. He's also got, for his hands to be as heavy as they are, they can be quick as well. He's got a beautiful dip and flatten move to turn the corner, which is the next strength. So we'll just go ahead and couple those together. Quick hands to dip, flatten, and bend and turn the corner. So it's a beautiful thing. It's poetry in motion when he puts it all together and you see him capture the edge, turn the corner with quick hands to slap down the tackle's hands, turn that corner. He dips so that tackle tries to recover and push him up the field. He dips that shoulder so they don't get a good piece. He then flattens, sticks his outside foot, gets parallel to the quarterback, flattens now instead of taking that arc. He flattens to the quarterback, and he can bend and turn that corner and get to the quarterback, and you see him do that. And I'm going to tell you right now, that sequence of moves that I just referred to and ran down, if you can master that at the next level, like a Robert Quinn, like a DeMarcus Ware in his prime, if you can master the ability to use quick hands to then dip, flatten, and bend the corner and capture the edge and flatten to the quarterback, you can make a lot of money and play a lot of years in this league. If you don't have a changeup to that fastball, if that's all you got, but you're damn good at it, you can stick around in this league for a very long time, because that move right there itself scares the hell out of tackles. And then all you got to do off of that is hard outside, back inside, crossover. Got him. So it's not hard. If you can come with that fastball, which he has, and have it be one that you can move around, because his fastball, while it's fast, it isn't 99. It's more like 96, 95, but it's got movement to it, okay? It's not just coming straight. He can dip, he can flatten, he can bend, and he can turn the corner. And if you can do that, you can become a problem in this league. Goes after the ball. I love it. Want more of it. Too many times guys are infatuated with the monster hit. They want to get on SportsCenter's top 10 for laying out a quarterback with a clean shot. And that's great. You know what I want? I want the football, okay? You could not touch the quarterback. I mean, you could not lay a single finger on him. He doesn't know you're coming, and he's standing back there gripping a ball in one hand. And if you just run up and snatch it from him, I'm more excited about that than the kill shot and he hangs on to the rock, okay? So he's one of those guys, he's looking for the rock. The ball's coming out. If he's got a chance, if he's got one of those rushes where you're pushing him around and the quarterback's just standing there, well, he's going to swipe at it on his way past, okay? If he's getting there and the quarterback doesn't know, oh, ball's coming out for sure, okay? So I love that about Aziz Ojulari as well. Plays under control, man. There aren't many times where you see this guy playing out of control, where you see him helter-skelter like a chicken with his head cut off and he's out of position. He plays under control. High energy and motor. And usually when guys have high energy and they've got a big motor, they're just running around, you can get some misdirection and you can get guys out of position where they're supposed to be. I talked about that when we were talking linebackers with Pete Werner. He's just running around. He's got so much energy, and there's so many times where he's not where he's supposed to be because he's got so much energy and he's just running around and he's not as disciplined as you would like him to be. He's not playing under control. You don't have that issue with Aziz Ojulari. Good athleticism. It's not great, but it's above average and it's above baseline. And so he's got good athleticism. It could be better, but it's good enough for him to pose a problem for NFL caliber tackles. And he's got versatility. This was a guy that stood up at Georgia a ton, dropped into coverage at times, rushed. So, you know, there's a question to be asked, and I'm going to ask that question. As a matter of fact, let's get to him and his weaknesses, and we start with him being a tweener. So, in my notes, I put not ideal length for a 3-4 outside linebacker, not the length you're looking for to be able to bench press a tight end or a tackle and get involved in the run game as consistently as you would want a guy to do. But he's not as fluid as you would like him to be a 4-3 outside linebacker off the ball as a will, okay? But then he's not big enough if you want him to stick his hand in the dirt as an even front end. So in a 4-3 base as an end, he's not 6'3", 262. He's not 2'3", 255. He's 6'3", 240. So, you know, there's he's like kind of in the middle of everything. Ideally, I think he's probably most suited for a 3-4 edge rusher. That's what I see his future in the NFL as. I don't think he's a guy that's going to put on 15 pounds and be able to put his hand in the dirt, and you feel comfortable with him doing that. I think he might be more of a 3-4 outside linebacker, and I think you just roll with that with Aziz Ojulari. Limited tools in his rush belt. Again, I talked about most of these guys you're projecting. He's another one of these guys you project. He's not ready to go as a pass rusher right now. He's got the one thing that I see him excelling at is, again, the quick hands, the dip flatten move that he has, and him being able to bend and turn the corner. That's problematic for a 6'5", 6'6" tackle that wants to bend at the waist and not bend at the knees. Those guys are going to struggle with an Aziz Ojulari. But he didn't have anything off of that move. There is no spin move. There is no crossover. There isn't anything that gets you excited about him. And right now, I don't even see, with him having heavy hands, I should see STP all day long. I don't see it right now. There's no speed to power that you get excited about. So he's got limited tools in the rush belt right now, but it's not something that can't be overcome and he can't get better at. Redirect and acceleration aren't the greatest. When you see somebody run read option at him, his reactionary skills aren't up to par a lot of times. If that quarterback has any wheels, if that running back has wheels, he could be staring right at it, ready to play it, and that guy just outrun his angle. His acceleration isn't great. His redirection from, hey, I'm here to stop, change directions, and go that way, it's not top notch. It's just not. So, again, that's part of the reason why you need to be careful with how you deploy him. And that's why, 3-4 outside linebacker, you ask him to drop into space. It may not be the thing you ultimately want to do. If you're going to ask him to be your 3-4 outside linebacker, it's not because you want him dropping into space a ton. It's because you want him rushing off the edge and being a nuisance in the run game and blowing up tight ends. And he's not technically savvy at all right now. Doesn't use his hands as well as you would like him to defeat blocks. He is not a guy that is able to stack and shed at the level that you would like him to at this point. He's not a guy that is doing some of the things like taking on a block with his outside shoulder or inside shoulder, keeping his outside shoulder free so that he can make a tackle. Just some of the little fundamental things that you want guys to be able, you would like them to come into the league being able to do. He's just not there yet. And then as a pass rusher, he's just not in that frame of mind of how to set up a tackle. How am I going to gather my steps? How am I going to attack this tackle's outside shoulder to get him to open up his hips so that I can go inside and cross him over? Like, he's not thinking like that right now. He's just not technically savvy in the physical sense, but nor the mental side of the game either. So right now, I see him as a late first to an early second. I would be I'm more on the second round side of the fence than I am first. But, in this league with pass rushers, they get pushed up a lot of times, so I could see him sneaking into the first round. My comp for him is Haason Reddick. And what's so interesting about Haason Reddick is it took the Arizona Cardinals about, I'd say 3, maybe even 4 years to figure out what he really was. And I think everybody knew coming out of Temple that Haason Reddick needed to have his hand in the dirt. And for some reason, they thought he needed to be off the ball. And he wasn't as productive. They tried to put him down in sub packages to rush the quarterback, and he just didn't. It's almost like a batter coming into the game. And if you're a hell of a pinch hitter, if you're just a professional hitter, you don't need ABs to get into a rhythm. But if you are one of those guys that can't come off the bench cold and hit, that's an art. You need to see the pitches. You need to be in the ball game, and you need to be able to set things up. Same thing with like a running back. Some guys can't come in the game cold and just expect them. They need to have a rhythm, and they need to be able to set things up so that later in the game they're able to expose the defense. Haason Reddick was one of those guys that just needed more reps as a defensive end. We saw it this year. He put up double-digit sacks for the first time in his career and had a monster game against the Giants in the Meadowlands one week. And I think they just took too long to give him a chance to rush the quarterback. I see a lot of that in Aziz Ojulari. They were doing so many different things with him at Georgia, dropping him into coverage, moving him around. He's chasing tight ends around. Like, that's not what he should be doing. Stick his hand in the dirt, let him rush, or stand him up outside 2-point stance and let him rush, man. So I think whoever drafts him needs to understand that who he is, what he is best at, and just let him do that. Don't have him doing a bunch of things that are going to make him have to think, slow him down. Let him go after the quarterback. I see a lot of Hassan Reddick in Aziz Ojulari. He is my 6th edge rusher in this 2021 draft class. So we get to my number 5 edge rusher in this draft class, and it's Quincy Roche. And I'm going to just tell you right now, the University of Miami, they lit it up in terms of the edge rusher department in this draft. It's a shame that all 3 of those guys didn't get to play on the field at the same time. It would have been fun to watch. That said, he's the first of the 3 to land on my list. I may have him higher than some. I really, really like Quincy Roche a lot. And I'm just going to tell you, he's one of the more natural pass rushers in this entire draft. I'm very intrigued by him, his skill set, and what he brings to the table. He's just a savvy pass rusher. So let's get to Quincy Roche and what he brings to the table by flipping his card over. And we'll take a look at what he brings to the table. So first thing is his athleticism. And this is a guy that you look at, and he's got some tape from Temple in the AAC. He transferred as a graduate his final year and came over to Miami to finish up to get on a higher level, at a major Power 5 conference, and to put himself into the NFL scouts' consciousness. And I thought it was a very smart move on his part. And even though the numbers were down, man, you can still see the talent, okay? And you can see a guy that just gets it. And his athleticism, albeit it's not elite, it's not eye-popping, it's good enough. Quickness. He's quicker than fast. He's not explosive, but he's quick. And he can lull you to sleep. You look at him, and you can say that about a couple of these pass rushers. You look at him, and you're like, okay, he shouldn't beat me. I don't see anything to this guy. And he's a guy that just, you blink of an eye, he's around you, or he's inside of you, and you don't know what happened. You get out of your stance, and you're taking that kick step to open up your hips outside, and he's already inside of you, and before you can turn to adjust, he's on his way to the quarterback. So he's got a level of quickness that can be very dangerous and deceptive that I think is going to bode well for him at the next level. He's started the point of attack. Again, he's not earth-shattering. He's no world beater, but he does his job. Stands guys up. He takes on blockers in his gap, in his proper fit. He started the point of attack. Mental and technically savvy. That's my favorite thing about him. That and the fact that he's a polished rusher. So I talked about, a couple of the rushers earlier just not having the mental aspect of the game down from a pass rushing standpoint, or even how to be disruptive in the run game. There's an art to that as well. How to take on blocks, how to keep your outside arm free so that you can make a tackle. How to keep your distance from a tackle or a tight end and keep him at bay so that when you need to disengage to get to the ball carrier, you can. He sees it. He recognizes what they're doing. Okay, I see that you're about to run this jet sweep. I'm going to blow this shit up for a 3-yard loss. Right now, I'm jumping it. Okay? Like, he's savvy. He sees it before it happens. There's a mental aspect to his game that a lot of guys just don't come into the NFL with. And then there's a technical side too, where he uses his hands. He's setting guys up. Okay, I've went 3 straight times hard outside with the speed rush. Here comes a crossover. Got him. Okay. So I think he's got the mental and technical side of the game down pat, and most guys don't. So it overcompensates for some of the lack of athleticism or measurables that you would like to see. People get caught up with that stuff. I want to see the guy that gets it, that understands how to set a tackle up. Quincy Roche does. Hand usage. Again, most edge rushers come into the league and don't understand how powerful hand usage really is. If you can slap down the hands of a tackle or a tight end right out of the gates, you've won half the battle. If you can then, after slapping their hands down, finish the rush, because a lot of guys will win initially, but they don't finish the rush by dipping down and ripping to finish. You slap down, then you rip to make sure that he's done. Dun-dun-dun, finish him, okay? You got him down with the slap down, hand down, man down. You know the rules to the game, all right? His hand is down now. You've slapped those down. Rip him and finish him. Don't let him recover. He understands that. His hand usage is, I won't say it's top notch, because the Bozas are the gold standard. Nick and Joey for coming into the league. You want to watch technicians with their hands, go watch the Bozas coming into the league. Nobody's done it better for me. He's not there, but that next level down, you'll find Quincy Roche. His pass rush is polished, okay? He's got pass rush polish. I love it. For me, with pass rushers, I get more excited about the guys that I can see it. There's actual tangible proof that he knows what the hell he's doing than the guys that I got to project to the next level. But I do understand the game and I know how it goes. And projecting is a huge part of how you make your money as a GM. And so Quincy Roche doesn't require a bunch of projecting. You can see it. You know he knows what he's doing. Okay? So he's got to dip and rip. I just talked about dipping. All right, hand usage, boom, hands down. Now you dip the shoulder and you rip to finish. He's got that in the arsenal. How about crossover? All right? He's got a crossover where I talked about setting that tackle up. Now, because you've come with the speed, he's getting off the ball and he's opening up his hips early, because all he's seen from you in the first 3 rushes, speed, speed, speed. On every third down, you've come with speed, speed, speed. So now you know what you've set him up for? Crossover. Hard outside, boom, back inside. He's opened up his hips. The door's wide open. Door's wide open. Now you can go inside. Fastest point from the quarterback from the edge rusher to the quarterback is inside, straight. Now you got him. He's got STP, speed to power. So I'm setting you up with speed. You're expecting speed. Your body's relaxed because you're just trying to open up and get to that mesh point of 7, 7.5, 8 yards so that you can push that edge rusher up the field. Now all of a sudden, you're looking to just get out there. You're getting that kick slide and you're getting into that shuffle to get out there. And all of a sudden, this man's hand is in your chest and you're like, whoa, 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 wait a minute, bro. I thought we were going with speed here. Now that power's in your chest and now you're on skates. He's also got hand down, man down. I love it, okay? Slap the hands down. Half the battle is won. Now you got the hand down. Make sure the man's down. That's where you finish it off with the dip and rip. So pass rush polish for me with Quincy Roche is among the best in this draft, okay? You talk about his polish. He's comfortable in space. There was a play I was watching him in, and he drops into coverage, and he makes a diving stab. It was against Clemson, as a matter of fact. He drops into coverage, and it ultimately didn't count. Somebody was offsides. But he drops into coverage on a 4th down, underneath a quick speed out. And Trevor Lawrence doesn't see him, and he picks it off. He ends up dropping it. It looked like he picked it off, but ball came out. But it's a hell of a play, and I'm like, Quincy, you sly devil, you. Look at you, dropping into space. All comfortable and shit. So he can do that, man. Production. Like I said, the sack numbers weren't what they were at Temple, and you would expect the numbers to come down a bit. He's playing against a higher level of competition at Miami, but, you know, we go down the list. In 2017, 7 sacks. In 2018, 6 sacks. In 2019 at Temple, all 3 of those years at Temple. In 2019, 13 sacks. Then in 2020, he transfers to Miami, 4.5 sacks. But check this out, though, okay? Tackles for loss in 17, 11.5. In 18, 9. In 19, 19, okay? In 20, even though he only had 4.5 sacks, 14.5 tackles for loss. So 10 tackles for loss, still impacting the game, okay? So, this is a guy that, for me, high production, forced a couple of fumbles in 2020 as well. He's just a guy that, for me, has the production that matches what I like in a guy that has as much polish as he does. And then he's a durable guy. Every year he's playing in every single game. 13, 13, 13 at Temple all 3 years, and then 10 at Miami in 2020. So love that about him as well. This guy's going to be on the field and accountable. Weaknesses, he's not a big guy. Like I said, a lot of scouts and GMs get caught up on the 6'5" guy with vines for arms that looks like Aldon Smith. That's the guy that they're after. They want one of those guys, freaks of nature. They're built like Danielle Hunter, and you get excited because you see all of this length and size, and you're like, oh my God. But, sometimes, like Charles Harris out of Missouri, that guy can't bust a damn grape. Okay. Yep. He's 6'5", 6'6", long ass arms, huge strides. You get excited. He ain't worth a damn. Okay. Yeah. He doesn't have the size you're looking for. I think that's what's ultimately going to hurt him in this draft. And it's going to push him back into the second, possibly into the third round, because he doesn't fit the profile that people are looking for an edge rusher. I don't give a shit about any of that. Some guys just know how to get to the damn quarterback. Quincy Roche is one of them. Probably more suited as a 3-4 outside linebacker. Could he stick his hand in the dirt? Maybe. He did it at Miami, but I think he's more suited as a stand-up outside linebacker in a 3-4 defensive front. So the versatility to be able to stick his hand in the dirt isn't something that I don't know. I don't know if he's necessarily built to do that at the NFL level or not. And then this is another thing. I talked about the size. This is another thing that's going to probably push him down some boards. There's no elite trait. Nothing that he does is electrifying. He's just really good at everything. I call this Pam Mom, okay? Proficient at many, master of none, okay? And those guys usually get shitted on. Those are the guys that get pushed back, and instead of him going in the second round, he goes in the third round. If he was sick, if I were talking about all these traits and he was 6'5" and he was 255 pounds and he had long arms, 33 3/4 arms, we'd be talking about this guy as one of the best rushers in this draft. But that's not who he is. So I got a second round grade on him. My comp for him is D Ford. Just a guy that knows how to get to the quarterback. There is nothing exceptional about D Ford. You could talk about his get off if you want. But D Ford, there was nothing exceptional about D Ford coming out of Auburn, which is why he fell to the third, fourth round, I believe. He was a quality college pass rusher that people overlooked because D Ford was 6'2", 6'3", nothing flashy, nothing jumps out at you, didn't have great length, long arms. He didn't meet the eye test. So he got pushed back, but ultimately turned out to be a quality edge rusher in this league. I see the same thing for Quincy Roche. He's my fourth edge rusher in the 2021 NFL draft. Or excuse me, my fifth edge rusher in the 2021 NFL draft. Checking in at number 4 is Kwity Paye. And this is a guy that, I'm going to tell you what. The love that people are giving this guy, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't see it. But it's one of those projection guys that you got to be able to just project out what he's going to ultimately be. Because the numbers aren't there. The splash plays aren't really there. There are flashes. Trust and believe that there are flashes, but a lot of his tape I don't get excited about. But yet he's number one on a lot of people's edge rushing list. And that's fine. It is what it is. At the end of the day, I don't see it with him as far as being my number one guy on the board. But with that said, let's flip this card over and take a look at why Kwity Paye is more likely than not going to end up being a first-round pick in the 2021 NFL draft. And so first thing we start with is his size. And for Kwity Paye, at 6'4", 277, I mean, he's built like a grown-ass man. When you see him, you're like, whoa, you know, he's built like a damn Mack truck. And so I was shocked because when you look at him, he looks kind of short and just stocky and thick. I didn't think he was necessarily as big as he was, but I was wrong. He's built like a Mack truck, man. He's thick, solidly built. From that standpoint, I definitely see that. And that leads to my next strength is strength. Okay, he's a strong dude, man. Strong as an ox, man. Physically built, knows how to use that physicality. And I think that's going to be probably his calling card right now until he figures out how to use some of his other attributes. But he's a strong guy. Athleticism and quickness. I think right now, and let's go ahead and couple in twitchiness with it too. He's twitchy. So what is going to get him drafted 15, 17, 20 in this draft? 11. Is he's twitchy as hell. And that twitchiness, you see it when he comes off the ball and before that guard can get to him, he's in the backfield waiting on the ball carrier. And you're like, whoa. Or he decides to use his crossover because that's really all he has right now is a crossover where he looks like he's going to the outside and he quickly crosses over, goes inside. And it happens so fast that tackle or guard didn't even get a hand on him. It's so quick. He's twitchy. And you get excited when you see that kind of twitchiness because you're like, what I can do with all of this, if I can just coach this guy up and get him to understand that he can do more than just a crossover. He can actually use that speed to win around the edge and not try to bull rush on every single damn snap. He could be dangerous because think about the endless possibilities if he can actually get some semblance of a speed rush and then have tackle or guard looking for said speed rush. And now he comes with power. Now you got STP. Now that becomes even more dangerous. So I think that twitchiness coupled with his athleticism and quickness is what gets everybody excited in a 6'4", 275-pound frame. That gets people excited. And what you saw is him moving up and down the line at Michigan, lining up in different gaps and in different splits. So that gets you excited as well because you can reduce his split inside. And now he's rushing as a 3-tech, or you can widen that split. Now he's outside rushing, as a base 4-3 defensive end, in a 6-tech. So, there's different ways to go about it. But I think it's the twitchiness, the quickness, and the athleticism that's going to get him drafted relatively high, coupled with the size that he has. He's got the crossover. I talked about this, his best move. That's really his only move that works outside of just sheer brute force, which is what you usually see him try to deploy when he's on the football field. The only finesse move that he has in his arsenal right now is a crossover. And that's when he attacks the outside shoulder of guard or tackle and then quickly goes inside and they just don't have an answer for his quickness. And that's where that twitchiness comes into play. But the speed to power is it's good. It could be great. It's just good right now because he's just physically built. He's strong. So It works, but there's no real threat of speed right now. So the STP isn't the kind that makes you shit in your pants right now. It's the kind that just says, hey, he's just pretty damn strong. Again, imagine if he puts speed out there on tape consistently and wins with a speed rush every now and again to get that tackle to expect speed, and then he comes with power. That's when he becomes problematic. He started the point of attack. That is without a doubt. You don't really move this guy quite very often. He's got a relentlessness and a motor to him that just doesn't quit. And that's something else you love with Kwity Paye. And then he's got upside. I told you I don't really like throwing around the upside phrase because everybody's got upside, right? But he's one of those guys you have to project with. You have to project. If you're going to spend the 13th pick in the draft on Kwity Paye, it's not because of what you saw him do at Michigan and the numbers he put up. It's because you're projecting that his talents, his body type, the attributes he brings to the table, they're going to manifest themselves into an elite player in 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 years down the road. That's what you're drafting him because of. His weakness is he's extremely raw. Extremely raw. I mean, this guy, he lacks polish right now. And really all of my weaknesses kind of stem from him just being raw. For an example, limited tools in pass rush belt. I told you, there's no finesse to his game whatsoever right now. He's just a big oof, a big brute right now. Wants to beat you up with physicality, and every now and again, you'll get the crossover, but there's no spin. And you know what? I did see one spin, but it wasn't fluid. It was mechanical. You could tell he was planning that spin like, man, it was almost like the 23rd snap of the game, I'm going to spin. And he's thinking about it all 22nd snap. And here comes the 23rd snap. And he's like, all right, here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to run to my left really hard, and I'm going to get him to open up, and then I'm going to spin. And he's thinking the whole time. And he does it, and it doesn't remotely resemble what he thought it was going to in his head. When he planned this thing out, that's how that spin looked. It looked really uncomfortable. So he's got a long ways to go in terms of the tools that he can use on the field to get to the quarterback. Hand usage is a work in progress. That's not something he's adept at this moment. And again, he's raw. So that's to be expected. I expect him to be able to get better with his hands. And if he can do that, he could become a problem down the road. No real secondary rush. What does that mean? So your initial rush is stymied. Okay, so you decided you wanted to go with a speed rush to the outside. Tackles all over it. Now you spin back inside, and a lot of times guys fall into sacks that way. You get some good coverage down the field. You know, maybe a linebacker drops right into a zone. They wanted to throw a slant, and that linebacker takes it away. He drops right underneath that slant. Quarterback has to turn it down. You spin back inside. Your initial rush fails up the field. You spin back inside on the secondary rush, and boom, look at what I found. He doesn't have that right now. His first rush doesn't work. He's done. You got him. He's stymied on the play. So need him to develop some type of secondary rush. Limited collegiate production. Again, that kind of speaks to the rawness, going back to my initial point. Don't look for the collegiate production to get you excited, because it doesn't. I mean, the guy, career 11 and a half sacks. All right, I get it. He played in the Big Ten at Michigan, yada, 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 yada. 11 and a half sacks. That's cool. I mean, I know guys that have produced worse and much smaller numbers, but just because one organization is poorly ran, you don't get excited and say, well, at least we're better than them. Well, they stink. I can't stand when, as a fan of a team, your qualification is at least we're better than an XYZ. Well, yeah, they stink. They're one of the worst teams in the league. Are you excited because you're just better than them? Like, 11 and a half sacks doesn't get me excited. So And the most he's had in any given season is 6.5. So no forced fumbles or one forced fumble in his career. Just not a lot here to get excited about from a number standpoint. It's not the production that's going to get you excited about Kwity Paye. It's the upside that's going to get you excited. My projection for him back into the first round, I would not spend a top 16 pick on Kwity Paye. Really, I'm talking 20 to 32 is where I would be comfortable spending a pick on Kwity Paye. But I do think there is a amount of talent here that, if in the right hands, could be unearthed and really turn into a premier player. My comp for him isn't a guy that's going to be popular or anybody that you might have even heard of, but I remember being so excited about Odigizua coming out of UCLA into the NFL. Guy was so explosive and twitchy, and he had an injury past, and that really hampered him in college, and it was his downfall in the NFL as well. That's why he pretty much never amounted to what I thought he was going to be. He was drafted by the Giants. A lot of people compared him to like Justin Tuck coming out of UCLA because of his ability to be reduced inside and the twitchiness. Remember, Justin Tuck was this pass rusher that you could line up inside and have him win there. And that's what you see with Kwity Paye. And that's what you saw with Odigizua coming out of UCLA. You could move him around. He was twitchy, stocky, solidly built. We'll see if he has a much better career than Odigizua. But I was excited about Odigizua coming out of UCLA. And I think there is a bit of excitement for Kwity Paye. Not as excited as some others, but enough to think that he's got first-round talent. So Kwity Paye is my number 4 pass rusher in the 2021 NFL draft. And I misspoke, and that's a good catch from my man Captain Spartan 04. D Ford still went in the first round. He just fell to, I think it was like 24, 24, 25, somewhere in there when he was drafted by the Chiefs. I thought he fell out of the first round because of that, but no, he still made it in the first round. You're right, now that I'm kind of playing it back in my mind. My number 3, edge rusher, Joe Tryon. And this is a guy that is extremely intriguing at 6'4", 251. You watch him, and there's a lot of reason to be excited about Joe Tryon. And you just look at his body type. Look at his frame. It looks like a frame that could get a little bit bigger. Like, I don't see 251 there. If you're telling me in that shot right there that you look at in front of you, he's 251, you got me, because I don't see 251. But that said, he looks like he could put on a little bit of weight, but he's he's just fluid as an athlete, which gets you excited because you think that fluidity can transfer over to his pass rushing ability, and he's just scratching the surface there as well. So that fluidity is what gets me most excited about Joe Tryon as we flip over his card and take a look at his strengths, weaknesses, and projection and comp. So his strengths, his size, at 6'4", 251, he's a guy that for me just has the kind of size that bodes well for him being a dynamic player at the next level. You know, I talked about Quincy Roche not having the size that you like, the length that you would really want. Joe Tryon does have that. He's got a frame that I think can add mass. I think he can get bigger. Again, is he 251 in that shot that we're looking at? I'm hard-pressed to believe that, but maybe he is 251 in that shot. And if he is, that makes me believe he could get to 257, 258, you know, and still not lose any of his athleticism, speaking of which. His athleticism and his length, I talked about his length briefly, but I just want to go ahead and hammer that point home. That's one of his strengths as well. He's got long arms. You can see them in front of you there, which helps him in the pass rushing department and in the run game. as well. And I don't think he uses that as well as he should. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But the athleticism is his calling card. I think his athleticism and his fluidity, man, is what is the biggest trait that gets me excited. He can be stout at the point of attack. Realize what I said there. Can be stout at the point of attack. I did not say stout at point of attack. There's a difference. The fact that he can be, that I saw it enough, that I know he's capable, gets me excited, and I make it a strength. However, he needs to be more consistent with that. There are times where there were too many times where guys ran right by Joe Tryon, and I'm like, hey, guy, make the tackle. Shed that guy. Be more involved in the run game. Be more assertive. But he can be stout at the point of attack. Comfortable in space. That comfortability that I talk about here translates over into his movement skills as a pass rusher. So I want to talk about both of those things now, because this is my favorite Joe Tryon trait, is that not only is he comfortable in space, so you can drop him as an underneath defender. For me, I watch him as an underneath zone dropping defender, and I say, okay, he looks comfortable. That there isn't any wrinkles. There isn't anything that I need ironed out with him dropping at a 45 or a 90-degree angle. I got no issues with him. He's not looking back and then sprinting to that area. His eyes are on quarterback, zone eyes, as he's dropping, and he's doing it smoothly with fluidity. All right, so he is comfortable dropping in hook zones underneath or getting out into the flats in cover 3. Like, this isn't an issue for him. And then, like I said, it transfers over into his rush. So when I say fluidity as a rusher, there are certain guys that their movements when they rush are choppy. They don't look smooth. They look mechanical, okay? Like they're thinking about the moves. I think of a guy, and this might be going back a little too far for some of you, but a guy like Andre Carter. I remember when he was drafted by the 49ers once upon a time. He played in Washington as well. Big, strong, muscularly cut guy, right? But he was so muscle-bound that his movements were always mechanical. They were choppy. It was hard for him to put moves together. When he would spin, it would take him forever to spin. There was no fluidity to it. Another guy that I feel like is not as fluid, even though he's a dynamic pass rusher, is Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack's rush isn't smooth. It isn't. Von Miller's rush is silky smooth. I mean, it's like your favorite alcoholic beverage where you take a sip and you go, oh man, that is rich. That is smooth. It just goes down easy. And then there are other alcohols that you drink and you're like, man, that was rough on the palate, okay? That is a burning sensation. Stay away from the Burnett's unless you want a hangover tomorrow and a nice headache. Some of those guys don't have the smoothest pass rush, but they get the job done, okay? The smooth guys, the fluid guys, those are the guys that win with ease. I talk about this sometimes when I make analogies with baseball. And easy gas, when a pitcher just comes up and his motion is it's clean, it's fluid, it's easy, and then he just strokes it and the gun says 101, and you're like, damn, that didn't look hard at all. That was effortless. That's what his fluidity as a pass rusher looks like. It's just smooth, it's easy. You see, he's not struggling to do this. He just needs more in his arsenal. Can be explosive with his get off. Right now, that's his ticket, is that he's got an explosive get-off that scares you to death as a tackle right now. He times up the snap, and before you can even get out of your stance and get into your kick slide, he's by you turning the corner, and your head's spinning, and you're like, that shit isn't happening again. So you know what you start doing now? Is you start getting out of your stance even faster, okay? And so you get out of your stance faster, you open up your hips faster, and now he goes to this inside counter, which is a crossover to the speed. And like I said, this pass rushing thing isn't rocket science, man. It's just about the mental gymnastics of being able to outduel the guy in front of you, okay? You want him thinking speed when you're going power. You want him thinking power when you're going speed. You want him looking speed outside and you go inside. It's all about making that guy confused. He doesn't know if you're coming or you're going. And with Joe Tryon right now, it isn't much, okay? He's got 2 pitches, speed and crossover. And in the league, honestly, you don't need much more. You know what Dwight Freeney had? He had 2 pitches and a half. Okay? Dwight Freeney had speed up the field. And we all know about the spin, which was the counter to the speed. You shit your pants looking for speed. You open up hips. Now he's got you spin to the inside. You're done. You're baked. You're cooked. And every now and again, he'd get you looking speed, or you're worrying about the spin, and you're thinking so much. Speed, spin, which one is it? Here comes power. That was the half. Joe Tryon isn't there yet, but what I'm saying is 2 moves is really all you need. One just needs to be elite, and then the other off of that can get you where you need to go. He's got that right now, and that's why it's exciting, because just off those 2 moves in 2019, and he wasn't a every down rusher. He's a stand-up guy. He's moving around. He's dropping into coverage. He gets you 8 sacks just off of sheer quickness off the snap and a crossover off of the speed rush, which I think needs to be improved. So the fact that his fastball isn't even 99 miles an hour at this point, and he's still able to beat you effortlessly with the crossover, you feel good about Joe Tryon. Weaknesses. No pass rush plan at this point. None whatsoever. He's trying to win off of sheer athleticism. I'm better than you as an athlete, so I should win. And it does win sometimes. You get the slow-footed tackle, the heavy-footed, waist bender, and he's beat. He's got nothing for Joe Tryon. Nothing. But you get the athletic guy that can move his feet, and Joe's not giving him anything to think about. So he's able to stay in front of him. Secondary moves need polish. I feel like he's one of those guys that at this point, he goes speed. It doesn't work. He gives up. He goes bull rush. He goes speed to power. And that's not really one of his better moves at this point when he just tries to go bull rush. Like, that tackle's not fazed by it. It doesn't work. He's not trying to spin, or he's not trying to jump outside or jump back inside. He's like, okay, you got me. I'll get you next time. Don't give up on the play. Don't give up on your rush, because you don't know what's happening down the field. That quarterback may be, like I just said earlier, falling right into your lap. Spin back inside and look what you found. Got you a sack. Needs to fill out his frame. I think he can get bigger, personally. I think that 6'4", 251, like a lot of these guys this year, the numbers on them weight-wise are going to be a little off because there was no combine to confirm that. So you're going off of program numbers from, in his case, there was no 2020. So we're talking about 6'4", 251 2 years ago. Like, is that legitimately what he was? I don't think he was 250 in 2019. I think that was a program weight. They fabricated that. He probably was more like 242, 241. I think he could get to 250, a legit 250, 255. I could be wrong, and he could be 250 as I'm looking at him right now. I don't think that was the case, though. So I think he could fill out his frame. Could be more assertive versus tight ends. My biggest pet peeve for Joe Tryon was he got his ass kicked in the run game by tight ends, and even some tight ends were able to block him in the pass game as well. Like, Hey, look, man, I better never catch my elite edge rusher getting hemmed up by a tight end unless he's an elite blocker. And there are some of those out there. There aren't many of those guys in college, though. All right? You shouldn't be getting your ass hemmed up by a collegiate tight end consistently in a game where they just feel comfortable enough to not even block you with the tackle. Just, hey, tight end, handle his ass. Handle my lightweight. Look, don't let me see that shit happening consistently. Kick his ass in the run game. Kick his ass, Seabass. Kick his ass in the run game. Make them remember why it is that they need to put a tackle on you. And if they think it's okay, they better double you in the run game if they want to run to your side with a tight end blocking you. He's getting his ass kicked by tight ends in the run game. He's getting blocked one-on-one in the pass game by tight ends. I'm like, hey, Joe, come on, bro. That's not how we do things at the next level, man. If you fancy yourself as a legitimate pass rusher and an edge rusher, a guy that sets a physical edge in the run game, you got to punk tight ends, man. They can't be doing that to you, bro. And then could have used more seasoning. Honestly, he needed 2020, man. He did. He could be the number one pass rusher in this draft class with a stout 2020 under his belt. But because he left us with this really nice taste in our mouth, but we wanted more, it's like an appetizer. It's 2019, 13 games, 12 and a half tackles for loss, 8 sacks. He left us with this great taste in our mouth, but we wanted more and we didn't get any more. So you're left to wonder, what can he become? Would that next year, would he have rushed more? Could this number have grown to 12 and a half sacks in 2020 with more pass rush work and more emphasis in getting after the quarterback? Because he was more of a blitzer that, lined up and rushed off the edge in obvious passing situations, but he was more of a blitzer. Walked him around, moved him around, dropped him into coverage. What if in 2020 they decided, you know what? We're going to let you rush a hell of a lot more. That number could have grew to 12 and a half, and now we're talking about him as the best pass rusher in this draft. You never know. Anyway, I digress. My projection for him, late first, early second. I got no problems with him going late in the first. I think he's more of an in the early 30s. We're talking 35, 36 type of guy, personally. But my comp for him is Vic Beasley. And again, comps are not made for you to go straight to what that guy's career has been or was or is. The comp is what I see. I told you, when I see a guy, what's the first person I think of? And I thought of Vic Beasley at Clemson, standing up in a 2-point stance, rushing after the quarterback, or Vic Beasley putting his hand in the dirt and beating somebody off the edge with pure speed. Don't forget, Vic Beasley had a season where he led the NFL in sacks in the year that the Falcons went to the Super Bowl. Very capable. All right. Joe Tryon has a lot of those same attributes, similar size, body type, all of that good jazz. He just needs to put it together. Better than Vic Beasley did at the NFL level. Joe Tryon is my third rated pass rusher in the 2021 NFL draft. Got a super chat here from Fat American, who writes, first of all, thank you for the super chat, Fat American, who writes, what about Chase? In terms of what? What are you asking me about? You don't have to super chat me to ask, to respond to that. But what are you referring to? What about Chase? You probably were talking about something in the moment I was saying it, and it made sense when you typed it. But now that I'm done, what are you asking me about, Chase? Just type it in the comment section. You don't have to super chat it. I'll see it, and I'll be able to respond to that. But what about Joe Tryon do you want to know? Does it apply to Chase Young? Thank you for the super chat, Fat American. My number 2 pass rusher in the 2021 NFL draft is Gregory Rousseau, edge rusher out of Miami, similar to Joe Tryon. No 2020 film under his belt, did not play, opted out of the season. And so you got to go back to 2019. And for him, it's a unique set of circumstances because you got a fractured ankle in 2018. So really no ball in 18. You blow up in 19 and then the pandemic hits and there's no 20 for you. And so all we got is 2019, essentially, is you're taking 1 year of this guy destroying college football and you're running with that. And it's got to be good enough to satisfy spending a top 20 pick on Gregory Rousseau. And for some, it will, okay? And I get it. So let's flip his card over and talk about why he's going to, not only is he going to be a first round pick, but he's probably going to be a top half of the league first round pick. So, let's see. For me, his strengths, the first thing that jumps out at you is his size and his length. My God, is this guy super duper long? Pause. Okay. Jesus, this man's arms extend forever, and so do his legs. I can't tell you how many sacks, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in terms of sack radius, but I can't tell you how many sacks this guy got by just his length. Just ridiculous, man. And I know those quarterbacks were like, there's no way this guy was supposed to get a piece of my ankle on this sack. I should have gotten away and been able to extend. And they weren't because Rousseau just go gadget arms. So his size and length are the first things that jump out at you. And it's the thing that's going to get him drafted. You know, that and the athleticism and, you know, his body type and the projection. I told you with a lot of these guys, the college production isn't there. So you have to project. He's got numbers. It's only one season, but he's got numbers. He's got sneaky athleticism. And my comp, as you can see for him, is Chandler Jones. And I remember Chandler Jones coming out of Syracuse. And we'll talk about that more when we get to his comp. I don't need to get into that right now. But I remember looking at Chandler Jones and saying, man, this guy is a tall glass of chocolate milk. However, like, there's not enough quickness. There's not enough athleticism. He's just a long oof. And boy, was I wrong. You know, it took him a little while, I feel like, you know, to put it all together for Chandler Jones. I don't think the sack totals were great early on in his NFL career. I want to take a look at Chandler Jones's numbers in his career early on, because I mean, he came in the gate with 6 sacks. I mean, that's nothing to scoff at. But the numbers weren't tremendous, but 6 is a good starting point. I think tackles looked at him and said, hey, no way this guy's beating me, man. You know, he's big, he's long, he's goofy looking. Not to say that Gregory Rousseau is goofy looking, but his movement skills aren't dynamic right off the rip, where you go, whoa, 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 whoa. What in the hell was that? You know? And so I think his athleticism sneaks up on you. You know, you think you got this guy in front of you, one quick swipe of the hands, and he's by you, and he's so long that he takes 2 steps, and you're not even close anymore. He's eaten up all the grass that was between you, and he's past you in 2 steps. And you're like, what the hell just happened? And it's sneaky athleticism. Quickness. You see the quickness when he decides to just jump inside, when he decides, okay, I'm going to time this thing up. I'm going inside. Ain't a damn thing you can do about it. You don't really see it when he decides to go around. It's when he decides, I'm knifing into the backfield. Come hell or high water. I may jump the wrong gap. This running back may cut it back behind me, and we may give up an 8-yard run. But the payoff is If I guess right, it's a 4-yard loss in the backfield. And even better, if it's a pass, I got him for a 9-yard sack. And that's when you see the quickness. When he decides, I'm going inside. Cover me, guys. I'm going inside. And he dips inside. Quick rip. Right off the snap. Good luck. As a guard, as a center, good luck. Start at the point of attack. That's when those arms come into play. He can just bench press you. Stand you right up at the point of attack and disengage, get to the ball carrier. He's got such a long radius, tackle radius, that stout at the point of attack really stems from his ability to just bench press guys, keep them off of his body and at a distance. Eats up grass quick, and that's why I kind of talked about with the quickness. It just happens so quickly, you know? He's in front of you. 3 steps later, he's past you and halfway to the quarterback already. And he's only taking 3 steps. It's amazing. So he's one of the, and Chandler Jones is the exact same way. Chandler Jones is one of those guys that, again, it's not quickness, it's not elite speed or any of that. It's his ability to win around the edge and then close the distance so quickly because his strides are so long and he eats up so much grass. He's on you in a hurry. Same with Gregory Rousseau. Sack radius. This is my favorite trait right now, is his sack radius. I can't tell you how many sacks that I watched him get that he had no business getting other than he's 6'5", with, I'm going to guess that his arms are every bit of 34 inches, maybe even longer than that, if I had to guess. And he dives at a guy as they're trying to escape, and he gets a piece of the ankle, or he gets a shoestring, or he gets the back of a heel, and they go down. Like, watch him against Florida State in 2019. Think of this like a 4-sack game. 2 or 3 of those sacks are with that quarterback. I think it was Alex Hornibrook. Thinks he's getting away. Like, no way this guy's getting a piece. And he gets a piece. And you're like, come on, man. You're not supposed to be able to do that. I talked about this a while back, and I reference this quite often when it applies. But back in the day, on a game called NFL 95, and even to a lesser degree on the Sega Dreamcast, there was a game called NFL 2K. And it was 2K and 2K1. I don't know if they ever made it to 2K2 or not. And you would hit the dive button. It was the tackle button, but you could dive. And on NFL 95 back on Sega Genesis, I swear to God, you could dive about 10 yards and make a tackle. It's almost like Tecmo Bowl. And on 2K, you could dive like 8 yards. And a guy could be breaking away on what you think is a touchdown run, or you could have caught a deep ball, or you think you're in the clear, and then a guy dives 8 yards and clips your ankles. And you're like, come on, no way. That's Gregory Rousseau, man. I mean, he's diving and he's getting a piece, and you're like, that's not humanly possible. His sack radius is ridiculous. He stretches out an arm and he's running by you, but he gets a piece and he's got you. He's got a relentless motor, man. He just doesn't quit on plays. There's a relentlessness that I love in a 6'5", 260-pound plus guy that you don't often get. He plays until his tank is empty. Now, when his tank is empty, you got to get him off the field. And I thought there were too many times at the U where his tank was empty and they just left him out there to fend for himself. But he plays balls to the wall. So the tank is going to run low. You got to give him a blow and allow him to get some water and rehydrate it and back in the game. But he plays with a motor that I just love. Balls to the wall for as many snaps as you can give me. Tap on the helmet and I'm going to get you out of there. Versatility. They played this guy up and down the defensive line. Defensive end. 3-tech. Nose tackle. You name it, he played it. 1-tech. He was everywhere on that defensive line. You had to be paying attention because he could line up anywhere at any time. And so I think that versatility coupled with his size, his length, the quickness that I mentioned, the sack radius, or just the tackle radius, you call it whatever you like. All of those things make him an intriguing prospect because you can move him around. You know, in obvious passing situations, you can kick him inside, reduce him. He can win with quickness, and you can put another rusher on the field. I mean, that's what you can get out of him. You can play him in a 3-4 defense, and he could be, I think, with some more weight, you could use him as a base 3-4 defensive end, a 5-tech. I think his talents might be wasted in that sense, but he could turn into Cam Jordan. Why not? But I think where he's best suited is a 4-3 defensive end, a base 4-3 defensive end, and you're hoping he turns into the guy I comped him to, which is Chandler Jones. And then the final strength is his upside, man. The 2019 upside. The stats from that season are eye-popping. They're ridiculous. There are games in there where there's 3 sacks, there's 4 sacks, there's 5.5 tackles for loss. And they're games that you're salivating over. They're just, you wish there just was more tape to see if that was a one-off season or if this is something sustainable for Gregory Rousseau. And he was just scratching the surface in 19. So some people may hold the inexperience against him, but 13 games, 19.5 tackles for loss, 15.5 of them were sacks, 2 forced fumbles, a pass breakup. I'd actually like to see that pass breakup number a little bit higher when you're 6'5" with his length. And you play on the interior a bunch. I'd like to see that number be more around 4 or 5. But look, man, that's a hell of a season for a guy that pretty much has never done it. And speaking of which, his weaknesses, he's extremely raw. Extremely raw. Why do I say that? And so the extremely raw nature of his game right now is centered around 3 things. All 3 of them, really. All of these are coupled together. He's extremely raw. Why? Because he's inexperienced. Why is he inexperienced? Because he fractured his ankle in 2018. And, oh, by the way, he's unrefined and undeveloped because he showed up at Coral Gables in Florida on the U campus as a 215-pound quarterback safety recruit. Okay? Let that sink in for a bit. He showed up in his freshman year, his true freshman year, as a quarterback safety recruit at 215 pounds. He redshirts and he sits out that first season, okay? That second year, he's bulked up into this 250-pound defensive lineman, and he fractures his ankle on the second snap of the first game or so, second game, whatever it is, early in that season. So it's a wash of a season there. And so 2019 is the only tape that you get. He's 260 by then, and he looks the part of a guy that is still growing into a 215-pound frame. And so all of this stuff kind of builds into, it's kind of already ingrained into him being extremely raw. So when you look at the inexperience, you hate the fact that he didn't play and there's no tape from 2020. You would love for him to be able to put that out there so you would have more to work with, but he left a hell of a lasting impression on everybody with the 2019 tape. And look, all of that stuff, raw, inexperienced, undeveloped, unrefined, and the fractured ankle, they all tie into one another. You either love Gregory Rousseau or you don't love him. I love him because I project what he could be at the next level. And that's Chandler Jones for me. I comp him to Chandler Jones. I remember Chandler Jones coming out of Syracuse, looking at him and thinking, this guy is okay, but he's just big. He's just long. Pause. He's not a dynamic athlete. I don't know why he's going to go in the first round. He ended up going like 21st or whatever it was, right in the same area I see Gregory Rousseau going. My projection for him is the picks 15 through 25. Someone's going to fall in love, and it's going to be because of all of the things I talked about. And you're going to see the upside. And you're going to see 2019, and you're going to say, I can get this guy to do this on a consistent basis moving forward. And there's no limit to his upside, and the possibilities are endless with this kid. And remember, he's a sophomore, a redshirt sophomore that only played 1 year, that came to campus as a quarterback safety recruit at 215. Somebody's going to fall in love. So there's that. Gregory Rousseau, my number 2 pass rusher in the 2021 NFL draft. So that gets us to my number 1 pass rusher in the 2021 NFL draft. And this is all about preference. You know, for some, it's Kwity Paye. For others, it's Gregory Rousseau. I've even seen a few with Aziz Ojulari as their number 1 guy, which I don't know how. But for me, the most natural pass rusher coupled with the most skill at this point. I'm not telling you that Jaelan Phillips has the greatest upside. I think Gregory Rousseau and Joe Tryon and Kwity Paye are guys with more upside than Jaelan Phillips as of right now. But if you're talking about a guy that can come into the league right away and get you 8.5 in his rookie season, you're talking about Jaelan Phillips. And I think there's a lot here to this kid. And I'm going to explain why he's my number 1 pass rusher as I flip over his card and we take a look. Size and length are his first strengths for me. You're talking about a 6'5" guy, 258. You know, it's crazy because Rousseau looks more like he's 270 than he does 260. Jaelan Phillips looks more like he's 250 than he is 260. He moves like a 245 pounder, but he's 260. And he's 6'5", and he's got the length that you're looking for. And he's got, you know, the pass rush skills, the size, everything that we just talked about with Rousseau in a much more fluid and a much more advanced package in terms of know-how. This isn't a guy that came to school to be a safety and a quarterback. He came to bag quarterbacks. So you can see that. He's been practicing his rush moves his entire life. So he knows how to get to the quarterback. Athleticism and fluidity. I talked about Joe Tryon and how fluid he is and how those guys just look different. They're graceful. They can turn the corner with ease. When they spin, it looks like Dwight Freeney, Poetry in Motion, when they spin. It doesn't look like a 3-part move where it's plant, turn, and then hook and try to turn and seal. It looks like one fluid motion. Sort of like when a basketball player that you can tell is just fluid and he spins, you're like, man, that's beautiful. But when a dude does it that shouldn't be spinning, it looks like he just traveled. And the guy that spins with fluidity, he traveled too. But guess what? His shit looks so smooth, you forgot that he traveled. You ignored the fact that he traveled. The guy that's choppy, that spins, that shouldn't be spinning, oh, you counted his steps. He took 4. You're like, man, that's a travel, man. That's steps. Ball, man. I'm calling ball on that. Give it up. You don't have to worry about that with Jaelan Phillips, man. It's fluid, man. The fluidity is off the charts. So is the athleticism. Quickness plus disruptor in the run game. So he's a guy that can impact the game, not just as a pass rusher, but he can also impact the game as a run defender. He knifes into the backfield. He has an understanding of what they're trying to do. And so there's a really good sense of a guy understanding leverage, understanding how to attack this blocker and still be viable in making a play, how to attack angles, what the offense is trying to do on this particular run. I watched it on film. I'm going to shoot the gap and make a tackle for loss. Oh, you're running a jet sweep here. I'm going to get up the field and cut off this second handoff or this quick handoff. You're running a reverse to my side. Stay at home. Now track it backside. Gotcha. He's a disruptor, and his quickness is what allows him to get into the backfield and play on the other side of the line of scrimmage. Stout at the point of attack. This is a guy that holds the point of attack well. I talked about the length, just like I did with Gregory Rousseau. Has the ability to stand up blockers and be physical with them at the point of attack, fit his gaps properly, and do his job. Could he do a better job of shedding blockers? Absolutely. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But he is a guy that's stout at the point of attack. Robust tool belt and hand usage. So this guy, as I mentioned, similar to when I talked about Quincy Roche, these are guys that come into the league ready to go out of the packaging. No assembly necessary in terms of a tool belt. They come out of the package ready to put a bevy of moves on NFL tackles to try to get to the quarterback. And unlike Roche, who's 6'3", 240, 243, whatever it is, and doesn't have long arms or no discernible traits, this guy's 6'5", I'm guessing 33.5-inch arms, and a level of quickness and fluidity that makes him stand out. And he's got the crossover that's scary. He's got a spin move that's nasty, okay? Could use a little bit more work, but I see the potential in it. It's fluid. It's easy. He knows how to use it. Just a little bit more work with that, and that thing's going to be lethal. And then he's got STP, speed to power. So right there, you've got three things he can work with, not to mention he's got a speed rush that I think needs a lot of work. Imagine if that comes to fruition and he adds a legitimate speed rush to speed to power, to a crossover that's deadly right now, maybe his best move to this point, and a spin that is on the come. Okay, that spin move is A1 and has a chance to be dangerous. So the tool belt is robust. He's ready to go. Hand usage, again, to me, if you want to coach up a pass rusher and have him be ready to do battle at the next level, I wouldn't worry so much about, speed to power and speed rush spins and all that. And that's great. The first thing I would teach them is how to be technical inside with the hands. Because if you look, the hands are half the battle. Tackles want to get their hands on you. That's why when tackles practice, the first thing that they're practicing on is their punch. How to switch it up, not be predictable, because they need to get their hands on you first to knock you off balance. That's why when you see tackles come out of their stance, they've got their hands in a ready position, ready to fire. The hands are the key. If you can win the hand-fighting battle, you can win the war. He's got the hand usage down to a science, and that's something that he uses to help him win and get not only to the quarterback, but to the running back as well. For a 6'5" guy, this is rare, but he can bend the corner, okay? That, to me, is one of those traits that caught me off guard when I turned on the tape. Not many 6 guys are able to bend. Usually bending is reserved for the 6'3" guy, the 6'2" guy. That's his calling card. He's already got a lower center of gravity, and then he can bend the corner. But when you see a guy like DeMarcus Ware, who's 6'4", or a Robert Quinn that's 6'3", 6'4", closer to 6'4", and these guys are bending, that's when it gets dangerous. okay? And he's 6'5" and he's bending the corner. That's scary. Relentlessness and motor. He's got a relentlessness to him, again, that is infectious, that you love to see, that you want guys to have. Again, that's not a skill. That's just want to. It's something that you don't have to be born with. You know, it's sort of like rebounding. It's a want to. Yeah, rebounding can become a skill. Dennis Rodman and Ben Wallace, they mastered the art of rebounding. Angles and where the ball's going to come off the glass and off the rim. But really, rebounding is all about want to. You want 10 rebounds, you can get 10 rebounds. You're 6'10", you should come down with 10 rebounds. But if you don't want to rebound, you're not going to average 10 rebounds a game. Same thing with motor. You can try hard. You can run around. You can not give up on a play. You can be relentless if you want to or not. And look, I'm not saying on every play they're running away from you. You don't have any chance. That's when you're supposed to catch a blow. You know, there are plays where you understand there's nothing I can do here. But you also, there has to also be that filter to be able to understand when and where to turn it off and when to have it on. And most of these guys that I've talked about tonight have that motor and they turn it off. Some guys don't have an off switch. Versatility. The versatility with him is, this is the thing. You can line him up in a bevy of rush alignments, 2-point stance, hand in the dirt. You can line him up, kick him inside, reduce his split. You can do a lot of things with him from a rush alignment standpoint. They did that at Miami. I thought they utilized him beautifully and kept the defense guessing as to where he was going to line up and how he was going to rush. That also lends itself to scheme because I think he can be scheme diverse. For a 6'5" guy, I think he could actually line up in a 2-point stance and be a 3-4 outside linebacker. I think he's fully capable. I think he's probably more natural in a 2-point stance. I think he feels more comfortable rushing from a 2-point stance, believe it or not. But I think that teams are going to look at this kid and say he's a base 4-3 defensive end. That's fine too. He's comfortable in that realm and in that world as well. So I think there is versatility here with Jaelan Phillips. So all of those things are lovely. Here's the reason. We get to his weaknesses, and here's the reason that people may not have him number one, and I don't blame them for this, okay? These are some legitimate questions, and one of these questions you don't ever want to have. The fact that we're talking about it, even if it's not a real thing, which it is, because it's been confirmed from his own mouth. Those things scare you. And when you're spending a first-round pick on a guy, the last thing I want to hear about is he thought about quitting and lost his love for the game. When we start talking about, I don't have the passion, I don't know if I want to play anymore, I want guys that can't live without the game, that they're dying, chomping at the bit to get on the field. I don't want a guy that when shit gets rough, he gets an injury, he starts to question himself, he gets off to a slow start in his career, and it's not fun anymore for him, he thinks about quitting. That's scary for me. That might be scary for some teams. I don't blame them. Sorry, I get it. And that could easily drop Jaelan Phillips from a top 15 prospect to a top back into the first half of the first, or back into the first round type of talent where he slides down the board a bit. Because again, look, let's go to these weaknesses. Dealt with injuries at UCLA, okay? And his numbers really didn't reflect the talent that he showed at Miami. And he was a highly sought after recruit when he landed at UCLA. And UCLA thought they were getting a stud. And what they ultimately got was a dud that questioned whether he loved playing a game of football anymore. He had ankle injuries, he had a wrist injury, and he had issues with concussions. So he dealt with some injuries. His time at UCLA was marred by injuries and lack of production. And you're talking about a guy that in 2 years at UCLA had 8 tackles for loss and 4.5 sacks in 2 years and only played in 11 games. And it was those injuries coupled with the lack of production, coupled with reduced playing time, that takes me to my next weakness, and the one that if I was an evaluator, I would have a problem with. All right. Question for the love of the game. Jaelan Phillips told people, I didn't know if I loved playing football anymore. When I was at UCLA, I thought about quitting. It wasn't fun anymore. That's scary. And I get the context in which he was saying it. When you're a highly sought after recruit, you get to campus, much is expected of you. To whom much is given, much is expected. He's got all this talent, highly recruited. You get on campus and you start getting injured. Your playing time then is reduced. And now you're a shell of what you were supposed to be. How do you take that? Do you grit your teeth? Do you bite down and you overcome adversity? Or do you succumb to it? Do you go into a corner, hide, and quit? He was close to the latter. That's scary. Because I just gave you an example of what could happen in the NFL on his rookie contract. He could get to year 3, had a rough first season, marred by injuries. Year 2, he's healthy, but he's not playing up to the level, and now he's seeing his snaps reduced. Are you going to quit? I don't know. I remember another guy that had these same questions. He was not anywhere near as talented as Jaelan Phillips, but the same questions about his love for the game. And Chad Thomas, former 3rd round pick, I believe, of the Cleveland Browns, and his thing was music. This guy loves music. He's a musical savant. We question how much he loves football. Does he love music more than he loves football? Browns took him in the 3rd round. He played 1 season and decided, man, I want to do music. Got me my cool, $1 million or so on a signing bonus on my rookie deal. I'm good. I'm going to take this money, open me up a record studio, and I'm going to go do music. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. They're not the same guy. That just worries me. And if somebody said, he's not even on my board in the 1st round, I get it. Totally understand. Speed rush needs work. I think it's amazing that he's got all these moves, and the one that's kind of lacking is his speed rush. He gets better at that. He's got something here. The next weakness is can do a better job of shedding. I think there are too many times that he's engaged in a block and I feel like he can make a tackle and he just doesn't. Guy runs right by him. I'm like, dude, you couldn't stick out a paw, get a piece? You couldn't toss that tight end aside and make the tackle? Dude, you're better than that. I know you're capable. What is that? That's bullshit. So, all in all, the talent suggests that he's a top 15 talent in this draft. I'd take him in the top 15. If we're just strictly going off of talent, he's one of those dudes that I would have to vet thoroughly. Talk to people that were at school with him. Talk to people at UCLA, going all the way back to the days when he contemplated quitting. I talked to people at Miami, talked to his family. I want to talk to him. He's going to say all the right things because he's looking to get paid. He wants to be a 1st round pick. He's going to be coached up on how to answer the questions about his love for the game. But I'm going to talk to the people around him to really go back to high school. If I'm spending a 1st round pick, I'm doing my due diligence on Jaelan Phillips. I need to know, what am I getting myself into? Were there ever thoughts of this guy seeming like he was disinterested in high school? Oh, there was? All right, cool. I'm not taking him. Like, I need that information. So, he's interesting. I think he comps to Carlos Dunlap. I remember Dunlap coming out of Florida, and I remember not being overly blown away by Carlos Dunlap, but knowing that there was talent there and seeing the versatility from him. And then Carlos Dunlap just really having a tremendous career to this point. You know, I think Carlos Dunlap has been one of the more underrated pass rushers of the past decade. When you look at his numbers, you don't apply those numbers to Carlos Dunlap. You think those numbers are reserved for a much better, more flashy pass rusher, but Carlos Dunlap has just been a model of consistency over the years in Cincinnati. So I see a lot of Jaelan Phillips or Carlos Dunlap and Jaelan Phillips. I think there's a little bit more finesse to Jaelan Phillips' game than Carlos Dunlap, but I think there are a lot of similarities between the two. So Jaelan Phillips, for me, is my number one pass rusher in the 2021 NFL draft. So real quick, if you're out there, please hit the subscribe button. All right. Turn on your notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And also hit the like button if you haven't already done so. 80 of you out there, okay? Only, 150 of you out there, only 80 likes. We need to get this thing up over 100 likes. So if you would please hit the like button, I would greatly appreciate that. So I'm going to get to a few comments before I get to my last breakdown of the night. And I want to get to some comments real quick. So Captain Spartan 04 says, I swear my Steelers got a leg up on teams. I'm so glad we got Alex Highsmith last year and didn't need to draft one this year with Bud leaving. We still need depth, though, later rounds like the 6th. Alex Highsmith turned out to be a gem for you guys. He played well in his rookie season. And as you mentioned, you guys planned for this, though. You knew that you weren't re-signing Bud Dupree. The minute Cam Hayward got the big deal, you knew you weren't re-signing Bud Dupree. So you guys planned on it. That's why you drafted Alex Highsmith, and he played well in his rookie season. JP says, this pass rusher draft class is super weak except for Rousseau, unlike the last 4 drafts that were rich with pass rushers and defensive tackles. I disagree with this being a weak pass rush draft class. I think it's more of a projection draft class. In other draft classes, there were guys that jumped out at you with numbers to back up the claim of them being a first-round talent. I think this year there's more of a need to be able to project what a guy can be versus seeing the numbers and actually seeing the play on the field and easily be able to translate that into NFL production. I think this year they're putting you to the test by you having to be able to say, all right, no, the production isn't there, but this is what this guy could be. I got a guy like that for you tonight. Got another one. Reese says, could Jaelan Phillips be there at 32? I just gave you a scenario where he could be, Ree. You know, where teams take him off of their board. They aren't comfortable with the whole, love of the game narrative he had at UCLA and say, you know what, I just can't take that risk. And they go in a different direction. Very talented football player. If he were to be around in the latter portion of the first round, you should consider yourself potentially getting a steal. Again, it's a boom or bust type of situation because, he could meet some adversity and cower and wilt under the pressure. But he could also show what he showed in 2020 as a pass rusher and a defender. A guy we're talking about in just 10 games, 15 and a half tackles for loss and 8 sacks, 3 pass breakups, and an interception. Like, this guy impacts the game. You could be getting a real game changer right out of the gate. Reese says, Greg Rousseau is a beast, Lou. You know how Canes do it. Hashtag it's all about the U. Y'all did it big in this draft with 3 of my top 5 pass rushers in this draft are all from the U. So you guys definitely did it in a major way on the defensive line. Reese says, have you done any backs yet? No, I haven't done the running back position. We're going to get to that in about 2 or 3 weeks from now. Next week, we'll do the wide receivers. I'm hoping to do both receivers and tight ends next week. JCamMan99 says, he says, have you done the backs yet? No. Apparently, my Bucks are head over heels for Javonte Williams. I know half of what you see, none of what you hear, but I don't know much about him. Is he any good? Yes. The answer is yes. He is good. Very good. We'll talk about him more as this process continues to unfold. JCamMan99 says, who will be around at 30 for the Bills? A plethora of guys in this draft. It just depends on how everything falls. I think the 2 you guys will more likely than not be gone. A guy like Joe Tryon actually fits the Buffalo Bills defense to a T. Like, he would be the perfect Buffalo Bill rusher. I mean, you drafted A.J. Epineza last year, so I don't know if you're still really intrigued by going edge rusher per se, but I do understand that your best pass rusher is getting long in the tooth. And so at some point you're going to have to replace him. So I think the perfect guy to replace him in that defense that's a multiple look defense is a guy like Joe Tryon. So he will definitely be around. I believe, I shouldn't say definitely. He should be around at 30. I don't know if Kwity Paye will be. Somebody might fall in love with his measurables and some of the flash plays and take him a little sooner than he needs to go. Quincy Roche is another dude that I absolutely love, but he's more in the mold of an A.J. Epineza, just a skillful pass rusher that I don't know if you're probably looking for a little bit more sizzle off the edge. So those are the guys that would fit in that. And then Aziz Ojulari would also probably be another guy that'll be around at 30 or so. Reese says, Jaelan Phillips can be as good as he wants to be. As a Cane, I question his will to succeed and his passion for the game, though. Dude's a freak. I don't know if he loves football, though. And that's a fair assessment, you know. Knowing his history, that's a fair assessment. Reese says, are there any Pam Mon prospects in this year's edge class? I already named one, and it's Quincy Roche. And I actually used Pam Mon when I described him. Proficient at many, master of none. When it comes to him, he's just a really sound prospect that knows how to get to the quarterback. Captain Spartan 04 says, why can we never have a really good tackle and edge rusher class or wide receiver and corner class? It's always one outweighs the other. It's just how these things go. It just is. Captain Spartan 04 says, did you see Tryon Jackson from Coastal Carolina? He was this past year's annual small school edge rusher that led college in sacks. Nope, I haven't gotten to him yet. I got a bunch of guys that I still want to get to, and I'm probably going to get to him later on in the process. There's a bunch of guys that I still would like to take a look at, and he is further down the list. I can tell you, let me look at my list right now, tell you exactly where he is on my list. Let's see. Tryon Jackson and William Bradley King and a slew of other guys are a little bit further down. I'm actually closer to him than I thought I was on my list. I only have a couple of guys in front of him that I haven't gotten to. So, man, there's a lot of pass rushers in this draft. That's why I said to me, it's a deep draft. I don't think the there isn't the elite guy, the Chase Young or the Myles Garrett or Nick Bosa type in this, or Joey Bosa for that matter. It's not one of those guys that stands out per se, but it's a really deep class. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if you see, 10 edge rushers go in the first 75 picks. Like, it's that deep. I don't think it's going to happen that way. I wouldn't be shocked if it did. So, Reed asks, Lou, did you catch Coming to America 2? I did. It was fun, worth seeing. Nothing like the first, though. What about Rocky Marciano? I actually talked about that on my podcast, episode 143, I believe. I talked about that already. So what I want to do now is I want to give you guys my sound the alarm. So the guy that, for me, I was sleeping on, can't speak for you out there. And if you're sleeping on him, for good reason. Grab a pillow, get a quilt, and a blanket, whatever makes you comfortable. You have every reason to be asleep on this guy. Not a lot of production, not a lot of splash plays, but the ones that you see are eye-popping. So I'm going to go to the guy that is technically right now my 8th pass rusher in this draft. And Jayson Oweh is my 8th pass rusher in the draft. I'm sounding the alarm on Jayson Oweh because this is a guy with not a ton of production. And, when you watch him, you're not blown away initially, but it's the flash plays that get you with Jayson Oweh. And those plays that you get from him that make you say, oh my gosh, this guy could be lethal if he's able to put it together. And he reminds me of somebody that I remember watching on tape when he was coming out, and I didn't think much of him. Didn't have a ton of college production. He was raw as the day was long, but he was athletic as all get out, and he was cut, and he was long, and he was big, paws, and he turned out to evolve into one of the best pass rushers in the league. And I'm not saying that's what's going to happen necessarily with Jayson Oweh, but I'm saying there's a chance. And so you're telling me there's a chance, and that's all I'm telling you. There's a chance. Let's flip his card over and take a look at why I believe he's a sleeper and he's moved up my draft ranking board for edge rushers all the way up to number 8. His strengths, size and length. We're talking about a 6'5", nearly 260-pound edge rusher. Now, again, he doesn't look it. And this could be simply one of those program guide fabrications that we get all the time. He looks like he's 245. But he's muscularly built. So he could be legitimately 255. Whatever the case may be, whether he's 245 or he's 250 or he's legitimately damn near 260, his frame is outstanding at 6'5". Whether he needs to put on a few or he's good right where he is, he's got an NFL body. Similar to the guy that I comped him to coming into the league. Frame that can add mass. I don't think he's 257. It's hard for me to believe that. He's one of those guys that I think would have weighed in at 247 at the combine, came in fast as hell, and ran a hell of a time. He would have tested well, jumped on some of your radars, and been a guy that people were talking about a little bit more. But because there was no combine, I got to go with the weight that Penn State was shoveling to us. I don't think he was 257. I think he could get up to 257, though, looking at his frame. Athleticism. This guy's a freak athlete. When you watch him come off the ball, and we'll talk about that here in a second, that's when the athleticism is most apparent. I mean, he's shot out of a cannon. His explosiveness is ridiculous. And you go watch the 2019 game against Michigan State. He had a couple of sacks in that game. And there is a sack in there where my eyes jumped out of my head for a second, where I'm like, whoa. That was a Von Miller-esque, Justin Houston-esque first step. Whoa. Okay. I had to catch my breath because everything I had watched up until that point was ho-hum. And then it's one of those plays where you go, you're capable of that? What are we doing wasting our time with all this other nonsense that you're doing? Just keep doing that over and over again and build off of that. And so he's got good redirect. He can stop. I talked about Aziz Ojulari not being able to stop, plant, change directions quickly. He can do that. That's part of the athleticism that I'm talking about, where he can stop, change directions, and he's like cat quick. So he's on top of you just like that. But the reason for me, and I'm projecting here, the numbers, this man has 7 career sacks. He had 0 sacks in 7 games for the Nittany Lions in 2020. I'm not telling you that this guy is ready to go right out of the packaging. Not even remotely close, okay? The numbers are underwhelming. The production and some of the tape is hard to stomach, but it's the flash plays that make you say, God damn it, this dude has it. And if I can just pull it out of his ass, he could be the next big thing as a pass rusher in the league. And it's the explosive get off and his ability to bend the corner. And really, I want to couple the next 3 strengths, because I talked about that, having these 3 strengths, these 3 things, like having a fastball and some kind of changeup off of your fastball. But in the NFL, if you can do these 3 things, which he can, he just hasn't been able to do it consistently, but he's capable. You can do these 3 things, you got a chance to be a dynamic pass rusher, which is why Danielle Hunter is a dynamic pass rusher. If you've got an explosive get off, that's a third of the battle, because you could get off the ball quickly and still not win. Because that tackle, he still got a chance to recover and push you around the pocket up the field. So if you've got an explosive get off, that's a third of the battle that you've already won. The next thing you better be able to do, though, is bend the corner. That explosive get off gets you to the corner at 7.5 yards. Now can you bend and flatten and get to the quarterback? He can do that. One of those that sack against Michigan State where he bends the corner, gets off quickly and bends. He put all of this stuff together. In one play, you saw the sheer brilliance that could be Jason Owe down the road. And then he can convert speed to power. There were a couple of times he didn't get to the quarterback, but boy, did he collapse the pocket. Quarterback luckily got rid of it on a quick 3-step drop, or his ass is going to get sacked. Because he took the tackle and he drove him into the lap of the quarterback. And you do that when you're able to scare tackles shitless with speed. When the first thing they're thinking is, man, I better get out of the blocks. I better get out of my stance, and I better get into this kick slide and open up, because this guy is flying. When he's looking for that, that's when speed can kick his ass, or power, can kick his ass. And he can convert speed to power. He's got the length to do it. Danielle Hunter has the same exact thing. You're looking speed, you're looking speed, you're looking speed. Here comes those long ass vines for arms in your chest, and you can't do a damn thing about it. High motor. Guy plays balls to the wall when he's in the game. Love it. And then finally, upside. All right. This guy has upside. That's all you're basing this off of is upside. If you were basing this off of production, I got nothing for you. You're basing this off of a few splash plays you've seen from him in a 3-year career, honestly, at Penn State. He's a redshirt sophomore, coming out probably way too early. But his talents suggest that he's going to get drafted high enough, and that's why he came out. He went to the NFL Draft Advisory Board, and they told him, hey, you a day 2 pick. You'll go somewhere in the 2nd or 3rd round, no worse than the 3rd round. So he came out because he's got upside. Weaknesses, super raw inexperience. I don't have to explain that to you. I've already done that. The guy is super raw. There isn't any complexity to his game whatsoever at this point. He could have used more seasoning, man. He definitely could have used more seasoning, but it is what it is at this point. He's decided to come out. Let's see what he's going to do. He's got talent. Needs to get stronger at the point of attack. That's part of the reason I question that he's damn near 260 is sometimes he got tossed around like he was 240. So I think he can add on some weight, get a little bit stronger at the point of attack. That will help him a lot to stay on the field because Penn State, they didn't love him on rundowns, on early downs. He didn't get the consistent reps that you would like to see a guy with his skill set get because they had to take him off the field. So if it's 2nd and 8, they thought it might be a rundown. He wasn't on the field, but it ended up being a pass. So he was only on the field a lot of times for obvious passing situations. He got a little bit more run in 2020, but he's got to get stronger at the point of attack. Needs tons of pass rush refinery. Again, I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know. Right now, it's just pure speed for him. That's his go-to move. Speed and then converting the speed into power. It's either a bull rush and it's ineffective or it's speed off the edge. It's one of the two. He's got to get better. He's got to put some more. First of all, I need him to be more consistent with his speed rush and then use that speed rush to convert speed to power consistently so that the bull rush is more effective. And then off of that, I need a crossover. I just talked about him having great redirect and agility. Use that to your advantage. Hard outside, back inside, crossover, go inside, quick path to the quarterback. And then play recognition. He just didn't play enough, man. This is a guy that misdirection gets him, read option gets him. Anything where you're getting him to chase bait, he's chasing the bait. They allow him up the field, ole, for a screen. He's going to the quarterback. He didn't sniff screen. He doesn't feel screen. He's just not there yet. So at this current moment, it's a struggle for him. So he'll get there eventually, I think. So I project him to be a 3rd round pick. I don't think he would have come out of school if he didn't get the thumbs up to be a day 2 pick. I wouldn't be shocked if somebody got intrigued and took him in late in the 2nd, like Seattle, for instance. This is the kind of guy they love. Project, guy that has all the measurables, needs to be coached up. That's their kind of guy. Wouldn't be shocked if they pulled the trigger on him. They love pulling the trigger on guys sooner than we think they're supposed to. He fits right up their alley in the 2nd round, but I wouldn't be shocked if he goes in the 3rd round. My comp, I've already talked about it. He's Danielle Hunter for me, comp-wise. Athletically gifted, long frame that's strong and muscularly built, has the speed to scare tackles. Unrefined right now, so was Danielle Hunter out of LSU. And he got in the league, he took the coaching, and Danielle Hunter is one of the best pass rushers in the game right now. So that is my sleeper. Sound the alarm for Penn State pass rusher Jason Oweh. 8th in my 2021 draft edge rushing prospects. Got a couple of super chats, and then we will get out of here. Vincent Coe, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Vincent Coe says, Aziz is a Giants pick. They love Georgia prospects. There is something to that. You're right about that. They took Tay Crowder in the 7th round. He actually had a really good season for them last year. They took the edge rusher a couple of years ago, the big, tall, long kid. Can't remember his name. But they definitely they took the cornerback that got in trouble and got released, DeAndre Baker. So there is something there with Dave Gettleman and University of Georgia prospects. So maybe Aziz fits, and that fits a need for the Giants. As you can recall, they need edge rushing help. I think they're going to try to knock it out early, personally, and take that off the board at, what are they, like 10, 11, 12, wherever they are. I think they take an edge rusher there. That's not, for me, that's not Aziz territory. But I wouldn't be shocked if they passed up pass rusher there and then took Aziz, in the 2nd round earlier on there. But I think they're going to take one of the elite edge rushers early. That's my guess. Abner Duran, thank you for the super chat. Abner Duran, who writes, "What up, Lou? How do you like Rousseau as the middle linebacker needed for the Washington football team?" Rousseau is not a middle linebacker. He is an edge rusher that can be reduced inside as an interior pass rusher on obvious passing downs if you so choose. But he's a defensive lineman. He's not a linebacker. So he's not a guy that I think Washington will be looking at per se. Now, you got to pay guys down the road. Maybe he's on the board and available at 19. He's too talented of a guy to pass up. And Washington takes him knowing that they got to sign Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne and all of these guys down the road. And they may not be able to re-sign one of these guys. And they think Rousseau could be the perfect replacement for one of those guys. I doubt that seriously. But that's, a scenario in which he could be selected by Washington at 19. Highly unlikely. But he is not a middle linebacker in any way, shape, or form. Thank you for the super chat, Abner. And Lorenzo Carter, thank you, Captain Spartano, for Lorenzo Carter was that edge rusher that I was referring to. More of a linebacker, stand-up linebacker, but he can double as an edge rusher. I think they drafted him knowing that he could get to the quarterback a bit. And they thought that that's something he could do for them. So another University of Georgia prospect there for the Giants. But in any event, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. One final time. Want you guys to sub up to the channel. Hit the notification bell if you haven't already done so, so you don't miss a thing. And hit the like button. 130 of you still out there. Only 91 likes. Want to get this up to 100 before we call it a night. So please, if you haven't already done so, hit the like button. Vincent Coe, edge rusher from Vanderbilt. I'll be breaking him down tomorrow on the program. So eventually you'll see his video if you don't watch the Washington show tomorrow night. I will be breaking him down. You're talking about Dayo Odangbo out of Vanderbilt. I'll be breaking him down with a slew of other guys tomorrow night on the Washington Football Report. So keep your eyes peeled for those breakdowns as well, as all of these breakdowns will be chopped up and spit out throughout the course of the weekend. So with that said, I'm going to glide to the side, allow you guys to enjoy the rest of your evening. I did not realize it was this late already. We've been at it for 2.5 hours. So I think that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the Draft Prospects 101 series live. Talking edge rushers. Look forward to chopping it up and talking wide receivers and hopefully tight ends next week on the program. With that said, I'm your man Louie T, signing off. Until next time, you guys take care and thank you for rocking with me this late on a Wednesday night. See you next time. God bless and good night.
LouieTeeNetwork.